After Scott Rolen. And Scott Rolen hits one into deep left field. Back at the wall. A leap. And a catch. Andy Chavez takes a home run away and turns it into a double play. Unbelievable. Wow. Have you ever seen better?
Joe Rizzo here, bringing you Hall of Fame baseball, the most memorable play of Scott Rolen's career. We played it for you. He hit the ball that Andy Chavez caught, which I still put as the greatest catch ever. And that's how we start the show. Scott Rolen has made the Hall of Fame. Joe Rizzo here along with the dog, Jeff Healy. And we're going to have our little annual Hall of Fame powwow. And it should be a good one. But, I mean, listen, nothing against Scott Rolen, but it's, and we might be piggybacking here a little bit on the debate, but it's definitely a debate. However, in another way, the debate is over because he's already in and he's not coming out. It does make for good radio, and we're going to do a little episode on that, and then maybe if some other stuff pops up, follow the show everywhere on social media however you consume it. We're at Diamond Diehards everywhere, and you can follow the dog on Twitter at Jeff Healy 8. That's the number 8. So, Dog, that is the most memorable play of Scott Rolen's career, is it not?
Hands down. Certainly the most replayed, that's for sure. So yeah, I mean, we were chatting offline on it about Rolen making it. He's a classic guy who is a very good to great player. Probably say great for most of his career. Very consistent. Is he an all-time great? I think that's where it sort of breaks down. All right. So I think we've kind of crossed that bridge where we've clearly moved from having just all-time greats, which I would probably define as like, you were always the best at your position for, a 5 or 10 year stretch or something like that.
Like an inner circle guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So like a clear Rushmore guy of your team, unless you're like the Yankees or Dodgers or something like that with a ridiculous history. But otherwise, for like most normal teams, clearly like a top 5 or 10 player ever for your franchise. And that's arguable on it. What say you?
I mean, the bar's been lowered. It's been adjusted. It's not the same as it used to be. You have, however, through history, there have been numerous occurrences of this sort of thing, and it kind of comes in waves. Like Phil Rizzuto, Bill Mazeroski, Pee Wee Reese. Like there's these guys that you could always make a case for these guys, right? But I like this framing of it, Dog. If you got a debate about it, then he's probably not a Hall of Famer. And that's a small hall guy.
Yeah.
Right. And the big hall people are like, well, it should always be up for debate, with certain sort of minimum obvious kind of qualifications. Some maybe statistical, some maybe not. So I like the idea of the smaller hall because I feel like it gives some exclusivity to it. Like the more that you lower the bar has to continue to be lowered. And when guys listen, Scott Rolen getting into the Hall of Fame was worth it to see the video of him telling his parents that he got into the Hall of Fame. Did you see that? I'm not gonna lie. I was peeling onions.
That was very cool. Mom really helped the situation on that one.
Yeah. I mean, it was beautiful.
Yep.
But, I'm sure that there's been a bunch of those type of stories, right? But at some point when you get guys like this that get in, to me, the first thing that you want to do is you want to go back and look at some of these other players in comparison and be like, wait a minute, if he's in, how come this guy's not in? Or how come this guy's not in? Or how come that guy's not in? And, for a guy like Rolen, it's, I watched him his whole career, and he just was always a guy that I felt was like a good player who I probably wanted on my team. But I mean, I never got the Hall of Fame kind of bug from him. And he retires in 2012. In his first year on the ballot, he gets 10%. And like 6 years later, he's in. Like, it's just crazy. Like, what happened? Like, he's the lowest percentage guy to get in a realistic amount of time. I think maybe like in 1936 or something, in like the first class, there might have been somebody who had like, a very low first ballot, but eventually got in because there was nobody in the Hall of Fame yet. Like you're trying to beat out like Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb to get into the Hall of Fame, and the GOAT Christy Mathewson, of course, my birthday twin. But yeah, I find it kind of funny. I like the debate. And Dawg, I know you're prepared for this one. Like you got stuff in there that I'm really interested in hearing about. And you started spewing it in our pre-show meeting. I'm like, save it for the show. Save it for the show. I want to react to it live, which we are on Facebook, by the way. So we're glad if it's Joe Serra or anybody else out there that's checking us out. We are glad, and tell a friend to tell a friend. Go share it. Share the link on Facebook. We'll do that now. Once Dawg starts talking, I'll go throw the link out there somewhere else too.
There you go.
But yeah, Dawg, you got a lot of stuff prepared, and one in particular is the Jaws stuff, and maybe give everybody a little bit of a rundown of like what you're looking at, and then we could start getting into it. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So so we're looking at this. It's based on Jay Jaffe, who's a sabermetician. So he's a statistician who's done a lot of work, kind of like taking on extensions of Bill James. Which we also sort of talked a little bit with the black ink and gray inks or other extensions of Jamesian metrics to kind of get a sense of whether a player is worth being in the Hall of Fame or not. So what they're doing is, in this case, he takes a player's JAWS, they call it, the Jaffe War Score system. A little self-dealing there, but whatever. Player's JAWS is their career average with their 7-year peak WAR. Note the only batting and pitching WAR used to determine averages of a given position. The current Hall of Famers are then grouped by a position, and a position average JAWS is computed. Which that to me is actually sort of the most interesting ones, where you kind of compare it by position, because part of the trick we have, like we were talking about with Rizzo and some of the other players, right, is when you're going from a defensive focused position, and then you're trying to go and compare them to like an outfielder, right, which is a very much offensive focused sort of position. It's really not a fair comparison, in my opinion, on there. So in this case, it actually goes and is a way to compare across. Right now, is WAR the right one and whatnot? We pick it for lack of kind of anything else. You can also sort of look, home runs, RBIs, typical stuff, OPS. So you can kind of pick your different one along the way. But the way it's sort of grouped and shared on this, I think kind of makes sense. And I was actually really surprised. I pulled it up. Full disclosure, when we were kind of first chatting about it, I kind of had the same reaction. Like I didn't think Rolen was. I didn't think he was a Hall of Famer. I thought he was pretty close though. Like I thought, it's like I didn't get like sort of the outrage on him, and people were definitely fired up coming out on it. I was like, yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a reach, and it's a soft year, right? So there's not a lot going on. So maybe he kind of backs into it a little bit on that. But I didn't think it was like an outrage of the system or something like that for him to kind of come in. And I pulled up the JAWS statistic, and I was actually shocked at how accurate it was, laying down like Hall of Famers versus non-Hall of Famers. So so just kind of give a sense. So the number one obviously be Mike Schmidt, right? So the the prototypical greatest third baseman there.
Or
Brooks
shortstop,
Robinson, as they would say in Seattle. But
or shortstop, George Brett, shortstops, according to our pal Boomer.
Exactly.
Boomer Hilbert reporting.
So he comes in with I mean, Mike has overall career WAR of 106.8. His peak was 58.8, which again, it's kind of whatever. So that's his best in his taking the 7 best years. And his overall JAWS was 82.8. Right. So, great number on that. Other kind of interesting ones, just sort of like playing around on here, looking around. Like MVP votes, that was something else that people are throwing out. Like, he's never really particularly a high MVP candidate or whatnot. Schmidt won 3 MVPs, was top 5 times, and top 10 9 times. Right. So I mean, that's sort of like a small hall, no brainer, sort of stats on there. Right. Next is Eddie Matthews, a jaw of 75. Didn't win MVP, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s. Wade Boggs coming in third, jaws of 74. He has 1 top 5 MVP, 4 top 10 MVPs. So again, maybe kind of getting down to a little bit more, your great player, right? Your top 10, multiple top 10s. I kind of put that as sort of a great player, sort of level. Adrian Beltre, like he'll be a no-brainer. He goes, so 2 top 5 MVPs, 6 top 10, jaws of 71, and a career of we're still like a career of 93.5 WAR. Right, so you're still way up in the stratosphere there. George Brett, another no-brainer, career WAR of 88.6, jaws of 71. And won the MVP, 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s. Right, so you kind of argue maybe he should be up a little bit higher, even say Wade Boggs. Chipper, the Met Killer, Chipper Jones, 85 WAR, jaws of 66, so it's kind of a little step down there from like the top 5s. Now we're getting a little bit towards the medium-sized hole in here, I'd say, right? So he won the MVP, 2 top 5s, 6 top 10s. Brooks Robinson coming in, career WAR 78.5. Jaws of 62. He had MVP, 5 top 5s, 7 top 10s. Ron Santo, 78.5. So I think we just lost him too, unfortunately. Jaws of 62. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit seeing from that. Remember, Schmidt was at 83. Top 2 or 3 guys were over 70. Actually, top 5 were over 70. So now we're kind of down the lower 60s on here. So Santa comes in, no MVPs, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s. My boy Paul Milder, so I finally found him. Career WAR of 75.6. A little inside humor for Forum Strat on there. WAR 50. It's like jaws of 57, so just below 60 now. We're starting to get into the next rung down there. No MVPs, 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s. And now next on the list, Scott Rolen. Scott Rolen, a career WAR of 70, jaws of 56.9. Obviously didn't win the MVP, had 1 top 5, 1 top 10, that was that same year. Next guy up, so we're number 10 now, so now we're at number 11. Edgar Martinez, WAR of 68.4, jaws of 56. No MVP, 1 top 5, 2 top 10s. So again, kind of Scott Rolen, right? So once you kind of opened up like the Edgar Martinez, the Scott Rolens of the world, they're kind of right there. Next guy down is going to be painful for the Yankee fans. This one came up a lot. Greg Nettles, obviously WAR of 68, jaws of 55.2. No MVPs, 1 top 5, 2 top 10s. So again, kind of right there. A little bit more power, a little less average. Other than that, very, very close with Scott Rolen. Right, so that's certainly a legitimate argument. Home Run Baker from 1908. And then we'll kind of zip over him real quick. Ken Boyer comes in. Actually, Ken Boyer's an interesting one, right? He has career WAR 62.8, so just slightly below these other guys. 1 MVP, 1 top 5, 4 top 10s. Right, so maybe kind of saying the best of your position at the time, or best in baseball at the time. You could argue Ken Boyer should actually be a little bit further up the list.
It doesn't represent there necessarily, but Gary Gaetti and Greg Nettles are very similar.
Yes, that is
They're
true.
very similar. I don't know if they like. I don't think they're right together in the jaws, but they're very similar. Like,
Yeah, I actually did run that. I think I hit it though, unfortunately. Yeah, I was actually looking at that one for before, and yeah, very similar similar stats on that. So again, I think Greg a little bit more power, and I think Gaetti a little bit more on base maybe, but I don't think his average was quite as high.
no, I think it was
do?
the average. He had him a little bit in average, but maybe not as necessarily an on base. Like neither
Okay.
guy was a great on base machine. They were effective hitters who played a long time and played tremendous defense.
Yep.
And they also, I mean, I guess, well, Gaetti got 2 rings, right? And Nettles got 2. He almost got 2 more, or 3 more actually. I think he was in 3 other World Series, wasn't he?
Yeah.
70. So he lost in
78,
76.
they won. Yeah.
He won in 77 and 78. Lost in
81, right?
81, and then 84 with the Padres.
With the Padres, yep.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Big, and he was a big part of that Padres team.
That's right.
Like he was an
along the big
important,
stick.
And
Yeah.
and he was captain of the New York Yankees. That's maybe going to mean something as far as Hall of Famers are concerned. So that's the thing, Dawg, right? Like,
Yeah.
so now we're into that argument that we
Yeah.
talked about. Okay, you're going to let Rolen in. How do you not retrospectively go back and let in Nettles? Well, Rolen, he was probably a better offensive player, even if he didn't hit as many home runs. And Nettles actually had, I think Nettles had what, 396, and Gaetti had just over 300, and I think Rolen was what, 316.
Yeah, 316 versus Nettles at 390.
Oh, 390.
Where's Gaetti? Where'd he go? I had him there. He was up in like the 360s or so.
Oh, 360s. Okay. And Gaetti and Nettles,
360 actually spot on.
Gaetti and Nettles also played even longer than Rolen did. And when they did play, they generally were, in the lineup more. Like Rolen would, he's like a lot of those years, right? Like there's some holes in terms of games played, 156, 160, then like 112, 128, 151, 155, then 100. And no, I mean 154, like 142, 56, 142, 112, 115, 128, 133. Like he had a lot of those years. Like he seemed to hit the DL, like not necessarily that he was missing massive chunks, but after his like rookie of the year season, he played 160 games once. It was the year after he won rookie of the year. And then he made it over 150. Let me sort by games. 1, 2, 3, 4 other times he only made it over 142, and he made it over 150 in those times. So for a guy that played 17 seasons, that's kind of a lot of missed time in there too, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe that's what it was. Like maybe we just didn't see him as this tour. Like you look, there's like, does he have any black type? I mean, there's none.
Not really.
It's crazy. Like there's none. He had literally, like you look at his Hall of Fame statistics and you notice like you don't see the negative like black type, like an average Hall of Famer, like because he doesn't have any. He literally has 0 black type. Like none. He's got, and his gray ink, his batting in gray ink, which is top 10, he has 27. Average Hall of Famer, Dawg, 144. So if you look at these, but then you look at
when did he play?
The Baseball Reference Hall of Fame monitor. He's got a 99 in batting, average Hall of Famer, 100. And you're like, wait a minute, how did he close that gap? And then Hall of Fame standards, batting 40, average Hall of Famer 50. And then of course Jaws talked about the Jaws with third base. He's 10th. And the Jaws argument is probably to me, it's like the best or the Baseball Reference Hall of Fame monitor. And we thank Baseball Reference for putting this all together. Go check them out at baseball-reference.com. It's like a Bible. So I like the Mad Dog Russo point. Like, you put Scott Rolen up against Jeff Kent, right? And okay, I'll give you that Rolen was a great defensive third baseman, but it's still a third baseman, right? And he's winning Gold Gloves most of the time. He wins 7 in 17 seasons. So for the most part, he's the best fielder at his position of the era. But like, offensively, he doesn't even compare to Jeff Kent. Like, it's not even close. And like, Jeff Kent didn't even get 50% of the vote in his 10th year. Like, how much does defense and base running and being a heady player make up for it? Like, it doesn't. The whole thing of Rolen getting in, I'm just so dubious about it, Dawg. Like, I just don't see it. Like, I just don't see it. If it was the committee that was sending him in, the way they sent in McGriff and the way they sent in, other guys in the past, like I think 60% of the guys have actually been elected by committees and 40% by the writers, which a lot of people don't realize necessarily. Like, if it's those guys saying it, like I actually feel like I could deal with that a little more. Like Harold Baines, like this to me is it's like the Harold Baines thing all over again. Yeah, that guy was like a really good player, and he's an excellent dude, and the numbers are very good, and in 2004 stellar, right? And he gets a ring in 2006, and he has a very good year there as well. But like the year before that, he played 56 games for the Cardinals. I don't know, like I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, you know why all the Met fans are okay with Scott Rolen.
Yes,
because
you are going to tell us.
Because
five reasons.
Because Scott Rolen is the gateway drug to David Wright.
Yeah.
Funny enough, you look it up, like the batter similarities and so forth, or player similarities. One on that, David Wright for Scott Rolen is 4 times. It's pretty sick to have a player get 4 times matching up with another player on there. It's funny. Actually, I was just playing around here, looking at Dave Wright, and obviously, Dave Wright doesn't have the career numbers and stuff to get there, but a career WAR of 49, Jaws of 44, right? So significantly down from the other guys. MVPs, number 1 MVP, 1 top 5, 4 top 10. So he actually had more top 10 MVP years than Scott Rolen. Actually,
okay.
And actually, a lot of guys, actually, even like a Greg Nettles, which is another, like some crazy one. So it was funny, like, if you look at that as like an old school stat, okay, wait a minute, maybe these guys are a little bit under.
Dawg, is it possible for you to look at this without a New York bias or a Mets bias for a second?
Yeah, I could try.
I mean, if not, that's fair.
No,
that's fair.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't say David Wright is a Hall of Famer either. I mean, he I think would have been a legit Hall of Famer, but injuries took that away. Kind of like the Mattingly argument.
Yeah.
As well.
Okay. I am a Yankee fan, right? We know that we've established that. I'm not anti-Met.
Pusoy.
I would say you also to give if we have new viewers, listeners for this time, you could also probably say that when it comes to the Cardinals, I know my Cardinals stuff pretty well.
Very much.
Is that fair?
That's your alternate team.
That's sort of like my alternate. I can't say that I like
necessarily. Kind of Mets are go through.
I can't say that I like actively like root for them, but I watch them a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I've always watched them.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
David Wright flat out was a better player than Scott Rolen.
I think peak to peak, I agree with that.
He was better. He was just a better player.
Similar, both very similar. But yeah, I would agree.
But definitely
definitely hitting
a higher
fielding
peak,
is a little close. Yeah,
higher peak, less longevity. Rolen gets him on the glove. Got to give him that. right? Won a couple of Gold Gloves, and that was early. And then he had some issues, and his whatever was, good about his fielding or like he was actually, when he first came up, he wasn't really known as a very good fielder. He got very good very quickly.
Yeah.
And then he just physically couldn't keep up. But like at his peak, he was a much better offensive player than Scott Rolen. And Scott Rolen was a very good offensive player, but he was wildly inconsistent to me at times. Like when he was good, he was really good, and when he wasn't, he had some real big valleys. David Wright had a little bit of a dip there at in 2010, 2011, right? He well, really more just the 2011, right? The 2010 was
post the beaning before the back.
Yeah, the 2010 was he still had like the power, right? Yeah. And he rose in the power after the dip. But like to me,
after the Mets designed the stadium to destroy their Hall of Fame player.
Yeah, like to me, he was just a
classic Wilpon.
He was a better player. He had a shorter run. He gets 14 years in the league, but it was really like 11, right? Or 10 even.
Yeah.
So
I mean, look at the WAR 7, which is an interesting way to do it, right? So Scott Rolen had a WAR 7, so that's the peak, the WAR cumulative for the 7 best years, or 7 highest WAR years, I guess. Rolen 43.6, David Wright 39.5. Right, so kind of close. You give him a little bit more. I'm gonna guess that 2 or 3, 3 or 4 of those years. If you did a WAR 3 or 4. Wright's probably ahead of him, right? So I'm going to guess he loses a little bit on the wings.
How many 30-30? How many 30-30 seasons for Scott Rolen?
He only hit 30 like once. I don't know if he's got any.
How many 30 steal seasons? None.
No, make me do all this work now.
Career high of 16. He hit 30 homers 3 times.
Okay.
David Wright had a 30-30 season as a friggin' third baseman. He hit 325 with a 963 OPS. Now, Rolen's.
You're right. He should be in the Hall. Damn it.
Rolen did have that one year. I think he had that one crazy year where he did have an OPS over 1,000. Though I think he did have one. Yeah, 2004. He had that big year in 2004. 34 homers. 314 with a 409 on base, 598 slugging. So he, he had that one super year, and some other very good years. But look, I mean, and David Wright also had that kind of iconic thing of playing his whole career for one team. Rolen didn't necessarily get the benefit of that after he goes from Philly to San Francisco to St. Louis, and during the 2002 season.
Both 7-time All-Stars. David Wright Silver Slugger twice. Scott Rolen once.
I mean, he does have the honor of being traded with Doug Nickel for Placido Polanco, Bud Smith, and Mike Timlin. And then I didn't remember this. When the Cardinals traded him to the Blue Jays, that's when they got Troy Glaus.
Oh, I did not know that.
Forgot about that. And then the Reds got him from the Blue Jays for Edwin Encarnacion, Josh Renicky, and Zach Stewart. Wow. The parrot arm, Edwin Encarnacion. I think that's an interesting debate. Like I said, but I wouldn't put David Wright in the Hall of Fame necessarily either. But just because of the longevity issue, but like as a player, I think if I'm like weighing the two guys, I mean,
yeah, I mean
David Wright was just better. He was a better player. Like he literally was a better player.
Yeah, I mean, again, kind of comes down to like, were you the best? Like this? I mean, Silver Slugger's like another interesting one to throw out there, right? That's sort of another way to say like, were you the best were you the best? That's right. If you're a Silver Slugger, and you're not, a complete butcher or something like that defensively or whatever, like that's kind of an indication that you're sort of considered the best at your position. As another way to kind of look at it. So, Scott Rolen got it once, which is good. it's an interesting one. Like I said, I don't think it's a slam dunk as some people have it on there, and I do think we've kind of opened it up. And yeah, was he a great player? Was he I think he was better than a very good player. I would say he was a great player, particularly if you're looking for the whole career and the consistency, which is part of the haul too, right? That you don't have the huge tail at the end. In general, guys in the hall tend not to have that. So they do reward the longevity. So it is a numbers accumulation, but it's not just that, like you're supposed to be kind of good throughout your career on it. So maybe we can move that, and that in that sort of framework, he lines up a little bit more than somebody great and then slowed down.
Yeah, it's it just makes you wonder what is in store for the future. Like, are the veterans committee now, or whatever they're called, are they going to go back and start saying, looking at these guys at these positions? Are they going to look at Nettles? Are they going to look at, Kenny Boyer? Are they going to look at the late Sal Bando, right? He's right in that mix. Like, he's the same
he's
kind
right
of
there.
player.
Yep.
The same kind of player. Like, the thing that just, what about Dick Allen, right? I mean, he's another guy. He's just slightly before our time, right? But he was a guy that we always heard about when we were kids. Like, and he's a guy that people always talked about, like, oh my God, like, Dick Allen was like such an incredible hitter.
Yeah, and especially for smaller market players, right? That just didn't get the exposure, right? That's one that I do think is a little bit fair now with the with the internet and streaming and everything else like that. Like, there's more opportunity for people to see. And that was sort of the argument why you had the reporters do it, was that they were following the game enough, and they were able to share the information enough that they could tell who was a good player, who wasn't a good player. But if you're in a small market, like way back when, I mean, that was harder to do, right? To kind of get that. So I think a lot of those guys, if you went back and rejudged it with just the numbers, you probably get a lot of guys that started popping out. We were kind of playing around a little bit. The other, I saw other ones get thrown out. Instead of Scott Rolen, how about Keith Hernandez? He had, again, very, even better defensive player, higher average, much less power. Arguments within there. Silver Slugger, you got one there. So when you kind of lay it out, I don't think it really holds together with it. So, I mean, Keith had a career WAR of 60, so it's close on there. Jaws stat of 60.8. He had Keith. I'm saying, I was about to say no MVPs. That I know was wrong. So won the MVP 3 times, top 5, 4 top 10. Right. So again, sort of like an older classic one on that. Keith is right there with it, even more so than Rolen. But like looking versus the rest of the first baseman, like running out of Jaws, it was a little surprising. Like the third baseman really kind of lined up strong with the Jaws ranking, and sort of the top 10 for Jaws on for first base, as you would kind of imagine. They're all Hall of Famers. So it's Gehrig, 114 more. Pujols will be 102. Jimmy Fox, Cap Anson, Roger Connor, Jeff Bagwell, number 6, pretty impressive. Dan Brothers, Johnny Mize, Frank Thomas, Jim Thome. Right, so kind of getting down to guys we're a little closer to, I guess. Cabrera and Votto, both kind of like lining up right there. Rafi Palmeiro, right, so there's like an interesting one on there. Did not get it, just below, 72 WAR on there. Willie McCovey. And then you get down to like the Todd Heltons, Eddie Murray now in, McGuire, different issues. Goldschmidt, Hank Greenberg's in, George Sisler's in. Then there's Keith, Bill Terry right after him is in, Harmon Killebrew again right after him, John Olerud, another interesting one people throw out occasionally, not in. Joe Torre in. Below that, Giambi, Clark, Jake Beckley from back in 1907. Let's say, who the hell is this guy? David Ortiz, number 29 on there. Tony Perez, McGriff, the crime dog, comes in 32. Teixeira's at 31, right? So they have let me just get to some of the other Hall of Fame guys here. You got Cepeda, Frank Chance, Gil Hodges, Jim Bottomley. I think I had him. In
Yeah.
in the 27 season.
By the way, who's
player?
Who's 47th right now?
Oh, your boy Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah, but
get it up there. Get it going.
You know, does he have a chance? Like this list is like all over the place with first baseman, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's way down. Last night you still have like Hall of Famers like popping in there, down there.
Yeah.
So it's actually was kind of more interesting. George Kelly.
You go to 94. George High Pockets Kelly is in there.
Yeah,
right above Travis Hafner.
Yeah, so if you look on that, then you know the Keith argument isn't as crazy. Looking down the Jaws one. So
but it's what the standards are, right? Like and
actually, where's Mattingly?
He's higher.
Don was down 39.
Yeah, he's higher than those other guys.
Just just below.
He's 40. Mattingly. Yeah.
Oh, he's 39 on mine.
Oh, in the Jaws?
In the Jaws, yeah.
He's 40. I have him as 40. How do you have him as 39? I have Adrian Gonzalez as
ranked 39. What's that? Agon is 40. Your monitor's messed up.
Oh, well, they're both they both have 39.1. On mine, Gonzalez is listed as 39. Mattingly's listed as 40.
Fancy.
So, wow. So they're both 39.
That's kind of weird. We get two different displays.
Now I clicked it again, and now he's 39. But they're tied. They're tied.
Yeah. So it's interesting, like him, like Delgado, right? So it calls Delgado, like all kind of in that sort of realm of like maybe, right? Guys who are, you know, people have made arguments for those players.
Will Clark.
To sure, right? So yeah. So
yeah,
that's really the trill to make it.
It's what the standards are at any given time. And like, okay, George Lovell-Morez jumps in. He's talking about Keith Hernandez, Dave Parker, Pittsburgh drug trials keeping them out. Yeah. At the time, yes, that's precisely what happened, and it hurt their candidacies at the time. Also, the big tail offs that they had at the end of their careers, both of them. And you know, yes to Nettles now. Well, we kind of covered that at earlier on.
Could be.
Yeah, but probably not. Like I think the ship has probably sailed on these guys. I mean, I think they have a better chance of getting elected in 50 years than they do now. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where they go back and they try, like, but you can't. Typically, what's happened.
I will say Rolen too. You know, 96 to 2012, obviously overlapping with the steroid era too, right? So, you know, does that kind of hurt? Like looking at the MVP ones and like, oh, he didn't get all the black ink. Well, look who he's competing with in the black ink. Right.
Yeah.
So is that really fair? I don't know. That's an interesting
one. If we want to look at second base, let's see. Kent is 21st. So the Jaws argument does not support Jeff Kent. The guy that it does support that's not in is Bobby Grich, who you could say was maybe like a better fielding version of Jeff Kent. And you know, I guess offensively his WAR was it better? Let's see.
Jeff Kent WAR 55.
Yeah.
Which again, right in that, if you played the full career, right? Like, you know, like we were talking, right was like what, like 49 or something like that. But obviously a much shorter career than Kent.
But like the argument against Kent is, and this is probably why he got his Jaws is 45.6, which was pretty much what his voting percentage was in the 10th ballot. It was like right there, but he's just behind like Ian Kinsler and Dustin Pedroia. So people look at those names and they're like, okay, Ian Kinsler was definitely not a Hall of Famer, and Dustin Pedroia is a Hall of Famer. He's a Red Sox Hall of Famer, but he's definitely a guy who's like, you know, you're going to feel like he comes up short. Lou Whitaker's a guy who's had a lot of support. Chase Utley's a guy who people have, you know, potentially talked about as well. But those guys are still short of like Bobby Grich on Warren. Grich never got in. Willie Randolph is right below Craig Biggio and right above Jumpin' Joe Gordon and Billy Herman. So he's not in. So these arguments are going to persist, but when it comes to guys of that era, like those 70s players who played into the 80s and maybe even into the 90s, they're not getting in. If they're not in now, they're not getting in until 50 years from now. Like when they have these old veterans committees that are going to come back and say, wait a minute, this guy was unbelievable, like Nettles, Randolph, like, are they going to get in because they both were Yankees captains? And, in retrospect, their metrics make them, look even better than we remembered them to be. The eye test, Dawg, is still the test for me. And I use the numbers to essentially buttress the argument. Like I want to, there are guys out there, like when you did the jaws for third base, there's 3 active guys who are like right near the top when you sort that list by top 5 in the MVP. And when you look at the history of third baseman, Mike Schmidt and Brooks Robinson both finished in the top 5 in the MVP voting 5 times. George Brett did it 4 times. And there's 3 other guys who have done it 4 times: Nolan Arenado, Manny Machado, and Jose Ramirez. So by that count, those guys, as long as they compile and hit certain essentially those guys just all need to get 2,000 hits and their careers are going to be better than Scott Rolen. Like by definition, they're like automatic Hall of Famers at that point, right? I mean, that's what it would suggest. But what we don't know is we don't know in 15 years when these guys have been, retired and, 5 years retired, what the standards are going to be, if the writers are even going to be involved in it anymore, or if it's going to be something completely different. Maybe there's automatics on this where they just agree. They say, okay, whoever has X jaws is in at per position, and we're just going to elect a whole bunch of other guys to kind of make this thing whole. But to me, Dawg, it's really, it shouldn't be about that, because those are just numerical milestones. Like they don't mean as much as what you see on the field and how other players regard these guys as being the best of the best.
I'm kind of digging the most valuable top 10. Like I'm thinking there might be a little research project for me on that. I'm going through and identifying all the Hall of Famers and how many top 10s they got. And I'm kind of doing that by position. Because it is interesting. I mean, other than and you probably have to zap the dead ball era guys and stuff like that. Because there's some like Nap Lajuli, never got a top 10 vote, but the guy's third in he was 8 of the top 10 in WAR.
Yeah,
so
but
WAR loved this guy, right? So
well, the MVP award didn't exist.
All right,
that's why.
There you go. Well, that's fair.
And right, at one point, you weren't allowed, if you'd won it in your career, you weren't allowed to win it a second time. So there's a few guys.
I could do some work on my metric then. All right.
Yeah. So you got to do the MV. You really got to do it.
Yeah, cut it. Yeah, cut it from when they start. Yeah.
Not even from when they start, but when they were allowed to win it a second time, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just looking here, like Rogers Hornsby, right? So top 1 in second base. So 2 MVPs, 4 top 5s, 4 top 10s on there.
Rogers Hornsby, 5th all time among hitters in black type. That was the tweet.
There you go.
Watching the Twitter, you saw that tweet before the show. Raja.
He was great. He was my 27 hero.
Dawg, Pie Trainer, 6 top 10 finishes for third baseman. He's tied for third. He's got as many as Arenado, Beltre, and Chipper. Pie Trainer.
There you go. Joe Morgan.
Jerry Milani.
MVP, 5 top 10s. Right. So that's sort of hits on there. Pedroia, 3. So Ian Kinsler, none for top 10s. Right. Jeff Kent won the MVP. That was his top 5, and also had 4 top 10s. So like that one to me is sort of interesting. Like, if you're like, you take like a minimum 4 top 10s, are you an MVP player? That's an interesting one. It probably hits most of it. You got Jose Altuve on there. What else we knocking out? Ben Zobrist only got the 1. That's probably legit. Let's try who we overlooking. Ryan Sandberg got 3 top 10s. That's actually surprising. That he did not have more. Chase Utley got 3 top 10s. Lou Whitaker
mean,
only
does
1, which is another crazy low one.
Does
It's
Pedroia
like-
get elevated because one of those top 10s was a win? Like, elevate him. Like, is he a guy
yeah,
that actually
yeah,
is
that's
going to
true.
draw more consideration?
Yeah, the reason why I sort of like the number with the top 10s was like just the MVP period. Sort of shows a little bit more the longevity. And so it's like you were the best. Like you could have like one great year, right? But you were great multiple years. Is kind of like, a top 10 is sort of my default way of saying you were great that
Yeah.
year, right?
Yeah.
So you weren't necessarily the best, but you were a great player. That one, Nelly Fox, 6 top 10s, nice. So Jose Altuve 4, whatever. Chuck Knobloch, none. Chuck Knobloch's 27. How'd that happen?
How you forget how good he
Fox?
was?
Nelly
You forget how
Fox.
good he was.
Knobloch.
But like some of those like top 10s, like all of Sandberg's top 10s are top 5s.
Frankie Fish.
For the
MVP.
Flash.
3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. Hall of Famer.
Deservedly so.
Exactly.
We're
Carew 6. There you go. Charlie Gehringer 8. There we go. Now we're
yeah,
talking.
he's
He was another Healy guy. He was great.
in the Hall of Fame set though. He was my guy. Don't forget.
Oh, that's right.
He was the mechanical man. So where do we go with this? Like, what do we do with it? Like last year we talked about we wanted a different committee. So this was the 1-year anniversary of the show.
That's right.
Last on 2022, when Big Papi David Ortiz was the only one elected by the writers. This time it's Scott Rolen, but he does go in with Fred McGriff, who got elected by the 16-man committee. And we posited a 5-person committee that we thought should
Our
do the
select
voting.
committee, right?
Yeah, our select committee, and nobody picked up on the idea. But that's I neither of us are probably surprised at that.
Head of a time. We jumped to the time machine.
Yeah, maybe. But
Like Cassandra, they'll listen to us eventually.
the overarching point, Dawg, is that the Hall of Fame means something to people. Like, and this kind of thing is not for, it's not so much, it's not for the casual fan, right?
Yeah.
Like this kind of thing is for the diehard fan. It's for the diamond diehard. And that's why we get passionate about it. Like this is a real sports argument. Like this is a sports argument that's been around for a while. And the truth is that there's been a lot of complaints about it over the years, and they change it a lot. Like they change the requirements and I mean, or the expectations a lot. Like it actually does happen.
Yeah.
So
how about should we go down the maybe like the top 5 or top 10 and sort of see if there was some outrageous oversights?
Yeah, we could do it.
Yeah, so we got our Scott Rolen. So we obviously talked Scott Rolen. The next highest sorry, MLB's popping ads on me. Todd Helton, 72%, so just below the 75% threshold. So he popped up on our Just Talk. He was not really in the Hall of Fame level when it came to Jaws and so forth. I would say not a Hall guy.
So you think he's that short?
I think he's just a little bit short. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yep.
I'm flying blind now, Dawg.
All the monitors went down.
Yeah, the monitor went down, but you got to tell me if you could still see me. I don't know how. I don't know how I'm going to pull this one off, Dawg.
You'll look great right now.
My instrumentation is gone. It's gone.
You're like John Glenn in orbit.
And I can't risk pulling out the cord because that will cut the connection. That will cut it. So
All right.
I don't know how I'm going to turn the show off. Rizzo
Well,
Automation, if you're
we do love the long form.
Rizzo Automation, if you're watching, get your ass up here and help Dad out.
All right, so actually, let me just run down the top 10, and then we'll except it's probably the least you can do that. So we got Scott Rolen, 76%, Todd Helton, 72%, Billy Wagner, 68%, Andrew Jones, 58%, Gary Sheffield, 55%, Carlos Beltran, 47%, Jeff Kent, 47%, Fonda, you're on the ballot, A-Rod, 36%, Manny, 33%. Isn't enough? I got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and let's see. I'll give you another couple. You got Omar Vizquel, 20%. Do we do Manny? Manny was 33%. Omar Vizquel, 20%. Your boy Andy Pettit, Juicer, 17%.
Juicer. I like how you're saying about him and not Man Ram.
We could get up there too, but I think that's like Abreu, Rollins, Mark Burley, and K-Rod Rodriguez down like 10% sort of there. So I mean, the ones that I think were obviously people were Jeff Kent made a good argument on that. I thought Billy Wagner deserved it, and I actually thought he was going to sneak it in. I think the way he's kind of risen over time, I do think he's actually going to get it eventually. So I think this is like his 6th year, if I'm right, 6 or 8. I think it's 6. So he's another one who's kind of climbed over time, which, as you correctly point out, is a weird dynamic, right? Like I get like the not necessarily voting first year. Like, so your first year to your second year being a big jump, I get it, because some people have the whole mystique BS of the first ballot Hall of Famer, blah, blah, blah. But like, why like 2 to 6 all of a sudden you magically got so good, right? kind of does, it like really pokes a hole in like the whole design of the system, right? If you're like a knowledgeable person, like 2 to 6 makes sense if you haven't heard of the guy before. Right? If you've heard of the guy, you've looked at him, you've already analyzed him, you voted and said no last year. Why magically you all of a sudden think he's a great idea year 5 is stupid. Yet apparently it happens with every person. So that right there is a pretty good argument for the whole system sucks. Andrew Jones, great play. I think just below on that. I think we kind of talked to him previously. Borderline guy. I would split it to a no. Gary Sheffield.
I think Sheffield is better than all those guys.
Yeah, but say that's a toughie. Right? Well, Wagner is a different sort of case, right? Obviously as a reliever, but Sheffield, I mean, it's a pure hitter certainly, right? So I think he kind of holds it up on there. Plus, I'm going for my boy Carlos Beltran right afterwards because I think he's a fantastic fielder as well, and a great hitter.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, we will wrap it up. Gatto Acupuncture and Wellness in Glen Rock, New Jersey is where you need to go if you're not feeling like you're doing your best. Dr. Melissa will hook you up. Book online at gattoacu.com or call 551-212-3845. Mascolo Group, they'll serve all of your real estate needs in the Northern and Pascack Valley in New Jersey. In fact, all of Northern New Jersey. Go to GaryMascolo.com or call 201-615-3665. FMSgraphics.com, a family-run, family-owned business for the last 50 plus years. All of your printing and promotional needs can be taken care of there. And you should go there. And I know that a bunch of our customers, our listeners have become customers of theirs over the few years here that we've been supported by FMSgraphics.com. And of course, Big Ed's Car Wash, 17-16 River Road in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. We just went over there the other day. Ed, Dawg, I think I told you, Big Ed is looking for you. He's looking for you. He wants you to come in. He said, bring the truck, get you all taken care of. And he's dying to do that. We're supposed to pop over to Big Ed's place whenever he's actually in town. Mr. World Traveler over here. Big Ed's Car Wash in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. If you're in the Bergen or Passaic County areas, you got to go there. Dawg, I just took my car there the other day. And if you're not in the Northeast and you're not worried about like what day it is right now, it's January 25th, Wednesday when we're recording this. But the weather's been, alternately bad. Like it's been, some of these days have been rain, some we had snow earlier on this day. And yeah, my car's just staying in the garage. Like I went out, like I was like, okay, I could go to Dunkin' today, like during a work break. I'm gonna go to Dunkin', but I'm gonna get back before the snow starts because my car's going in the garage because I got the big Ed, treatment on, I think it was, what did we go? Sunday. I think we went Sunday.
Nice.
Got the big Ed treatment Sunday, and the car's staying in there until the roads are better.
Appropriate.
Big Ed prayed for snow. It's like, it's been slow, man. We've only had like one snow. The roads are not like having to be salted. He's like, usually at this time of year, it's like cars are backed up out the wazoo. Like I need it to snow, man. Well, Ed,
there you go.
Wish granted. Big Ed. All right, Dawg. I think we had pretty much put a bow on it before we took the break there. Bottom line, it's always going to be a day that we're interested in talking about baseball, and any cold day in January when it's snowing out that we get to talk about baseball, Dawg, I'm glad, because even though I didn't get to watch much of the football games here during the playoffs, a lot of the games have conflicted with New Jersey Rockets girls hockey. I was really like jonesing for some baseball. I was telling Luisa Rizzo too. I'm like, put your glove on. Like, we got to go have a catch. Like, you got to get ready for softball. Say, swing the bat. Like, I want to see you do it. I'm like ready for some baseball already. I love the football. I love the hockey. I just like baseball. Like, you miss it. It's part of your soul when you love it.
There you go. That's true. So that's actually a nice one. That's only good things about the football can extend is that we can jump quicker to back to baseball. So
I didn't really think of it that way, but it's not untrue.
Yeah, Super Bowl to spring training, perfect.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's.
I think it even overlaps now. Like, it used to be
Groundhog
Day. Groundhog Day was usually like pitchers and catchers, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Now, like February 12th, like you could go, to the Super Bowl in Arizona and like go catch like, the Royals and surprise Arizona, like right before it, Boomer Hilbert reporting.
Exactly. We got a chance now.
Yeah. All right. Follow the show. Please support us. YouTube, Facebook group, but especially on the audio channels there, Apple Podcasts, which is where we know most of you are, Spotify as well, and whatever else, Amazon and Google, however you listen to us. Please subscribe or do the follows, whatever you need to do there. It really does help. It really makes a difference. I should have hit the mute button there, Dawg, but I'm trying to wrap it up. And you can follow us on social media everywhere at Diamond Diehards. Usually that's me behind it. And follow the Dawg on Twitter at Jeff Healy 8. That's Jeff Healy and the number 8. That's going to do it for the Hall of Fame show, our annual rant. For the Dawg, Jeff Healy, this is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.